there's a lot of YouTube videos out there breaking down, like, if you want to get into streaming, like, here's what you should do. And I feel like a lot of times those people focus on the cheapest budget entry points possible. I feel like with who we all are for different ways, either Kind of Funny, Snowbike Mike, Andy Cortez, we are past that. And I don't want to go into that. There's a million resources out there for people to get into that. I want to talk about, for y'all, what do you think are the worthy investments, the important pieces of tech that are actually worth buying? And on top of that, what are the programs y'all are using? And are any of them the premium version? Are you paying for anything, or is it free software out there? Mike?
You know, we're not going to go with the cheapest route, Andy, because, of course, I started on just an Xbox, and you can do that, right? Like, nowadays, you can stream from your Xbox or PlayStation, and boom, you're live. But we'll take it one step to the next one is what I think we should go with. I think you got to have a PC, right? Like, you need a dedicated PC that is strong enough to be able to stream from. I don't think it needs to be the mega beefy PC where you're playing games and streaming, but I think you do need to stream from a PC to be at that next level and be able to do the things that we do here Kind of Funny and with me and Andy with what we're doing day to day. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. Like when I first started streaming in 2016, and even like 2018 when I finally rejoined, like when I joined Kind of Funny and finally rejoined kind of the Twitch landscape, because I would stream from home every once in a while, back when I still lived in Texas. But when I finally did it here, I was streaming off of a laptop. So I had a gaming laptop that wasn't very powerful with an Elgato capture card. And it was the Elgato, I think it was just the HD60 at that point. Now they've gotten the Plus and the HD, all that stuff that adds better bitrate and better, you know, it was one of those that still had, I think, USB. It was one of the old USBs, Tim, that looked like a camera plug or whatever. It was pretty old, right? But you want a capture card in order to capture whatever you're doing off of your console, or in some cases, if you're not trying to be a gaming streamer, which I'd highly recommend, because
that's the big market
like
right
if
now.
you want, you know,
yeah.
like it's such a like it's becoming kind of a niche nowadays to game on these places and become very, very popular for it. You still have people like Maximilian Dude, who's all about fighting games or some of the FromSoft games, or you have people like our good friend Ray Narvaez, twitch.tv/Ray, where Ray is going to be playing games. He's not going to do an IRL stream. He's not going to go out and, you know, eat at a restaurant and then get into Uber or whatever. Like he is always streaming games, and he has built up such an awesome fan base because of that. I'd say it's a lot harder to do that nowadays. You do have recent streamers like Jinxie, who Jinxie plays Rainbow Six Siege, or you have Sketch, who plays a lot of Madden. And there's ways to kind of, there are definitely the outliers, but I'd say like a really, really popular way to get big quick is like just chatting.
Just chatting, reacts. Reacts is like the big thing right now. You're reacting to other people's content. You're sitting there and hopefully providing some sort of fun, but that's the big stuff right now.
Yeah, if you can do React stuff and post that stuff on TikTok and, you know, IG Reels and make a name for yourself, I feel like that's...
Whoa, I'm going to make a name for myself, yeah.
I'm going to make a name for myself. That's got to be the most cost-efficient way to do it without needing a console and a capture card and all that fun stuff. But if you're like me, who wants to be gaming 95% of the time on Twitch, and for the 5% of the other time, it's usually during a long marathon stream where I'm watching videos with chat, or I'll stop and we're drawing a piece of art or whatever the hell. If you're wanting to be gaming, you need a capture card. You need some sort of computer that's powerful enough to stream to these websites, or, you know, to Twitch or YouTube. And a good enough microphone with a decent enough camera.
And that's it, right? And I feel like with that, everything that you just mentioned, besides the PC, am I wrong in saying Elgato is the go-to at this point? Mainly because they have focused so much on streaming and on the streaming experience of making it accessible and good enough at the very least, with options to upgrade as well. In the sense of they have mics, they have cameras, they have lighting, they have all of it. Like, what would you say, Andy?
I would say absolutely. Elgato's helped us out a lot, but only because we were so enthusiastic about their software to begin with and their hardware. So I was always like buying Elgato stuff as it is. I think Elgato's definitely made a lot of right decisions getting into different areas of, hey, if you're not the hardcore gaming stream or a gaming streamer, you don't need all this stuff. We made a more casual line of stuff that's for people who are more budget conscious and people who want tech that isn't the most top of the line, but still very, very good, and it's kind of going to get you by or whatever. I was always like, just get your little Logitech, whatever the hell webcam it was, and then Elgato started coming out with their versions of it as well. And they both have pros and cons, but I would say like just get a decent enough camera. You don't need the most amazing thing. You can also pop off like what I was just mentioning with a streamer like Jinxie or Sketch who go off of their headset mics. And like, I don't recommend that, but damn, like there's a lot of people out there that have shown that you don't need
any of that.
You don't need the top of the line tech to be, something like, I would say like, you should anyway.
That's my thing is like, you don't need that stuff. I do think though that there is a baseline of expectation. And if you are expecting for people to actually want to listen to you and come back, I think that a mic is actually very important. I don't think that you need the mics that we're using right now that a lot of streamers, you can, like the streaming and this type of stuff is one of those limitless type of hobbies where you can always make it better and better and better. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be audiophile quality though. Like there are mics out there like the Elgato Wave 3 that they have. And even now there's the Wave 1, I think it was called, that is more entry level in terms of budget, but the quality difference between using a headset mic and that is astronomical.
Yeah, I mean, think of the amount of careers started on Blue microphones. Like, I had a Blue all for the first like 3 or 4 years of streaming.
Yeti Snowballs,
yeah, the Yeti Snowball mic, absolutely.
Yeah, I think
these
it's
are
also
ones at Best Buy you could just go and drop $60 and get a really, really good mic.
You got to kind of remember who you are, what kind of audience is going to be hanging out with you, and also you have to remember like there's just kids out there that are just having fun streaming. And like Andy said, right? I'm turning into some chat and they're just blaring music as loud as possible. But there's 150,000 people. They're just having a good time. So it depends on the audience you're trying to attract, right? Like there are certain people who want a nice crisp camera, a nice sounding microphone. And then there's just people having fun, just doing whatever. So you don't have to go crazy. It depends on what kind of audience you and your gaming or your habits will entail.
This episode is brought to you by Monster Hunter Now. There's never been a better time to jump in and play Monster Hunter Now. The game allows you to embark on a global quest in the real world to track down and hunt monsters from the Monster Hunter universe with your friends. For a limited time, earn a powerful Mr. Beast sword and shield, the perfect starter weapon for new hunters via the Mr. Beast quest line. Check this out.
Wait. Late for work. Then Monster Hunter. Now. Boring date. Then Monster Hunters. Now. Then. Now. Then. Now. Then. Now. Then.
Not now.
Then. Now. Monster Hunter Now. Hunt anywhere.
Download Monster Hunter Now by scanning this QR code or going to kindafunny.com/Monster Hunter Now. Again, go to kindafunny.com/Monster Hunter Now to get Monster Hunter Now. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Every once in a while, it is important to check in and ask yourself, what are your self-care non-negotiables? When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. Some of Tim's best friends use BetterHelp and love how helpful it can be for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/kindafunny. betterhelp.com/kindafunny.
From a production standpoint, for people that are interested in that, I would say in terms of priority, audio should always be first, because I feel like audio is going to be the takeaway. I always say this, no matter how pretty something is, if it doesn't sound good, like, it's shit. Like, if you're watching a movie and it sounds like garbage, it's like people can't turn that part off their head. There's something about the consistency and the through line of audio that I feel like you really need to be at least good enough. And again, I'm not saying you need to buy $400 mics. Like, there are $50 mics out there that are more than good enough. But beyond that, I would even say, because I know a lot of people are going to want to jump into like the super nice cameras, like the mirrorless cameras, and getting that depth of field, like the type of cameras that we use. I would say before you make that jump up, lighting is the next big thing, because even a shitty camera with lighting is going to look better than an amazing camera with bad lighting. And the lighting doesn't need to be anything crazy. It could just be lights that you have around you. At this point, there are so many different options. But again, Elgato has some really great ones to look into.
Man, yeah, I'm such the basic guy. As Andy knows, I'm not the super tech guy. And so I go by just the basic brands that all these streamers have always talked about, right? Like, I am an NZXT computer guy. I buy the basic NZXT. It's good enough for me. I buy the basic Elgato stuff. It's been good enough for me. And so it's really fun because we can go down a list of way more computer people. We can talk about all the streaming stuff, but I've always just been the two basic brands that have got me in at a cheap price, an efficient way to get in, and I'm often streaming.
Yeah, and then free programs like OBS have made things just incredible.
Yeah. So Streamlabs, OBS,
that's what I want to ask you guys now. So we were talking a little bit about the production tech and like needing a computer. What are if you do not know about these applications, you can't even get into streaming?
Yeah, so OBS would be the first one, right? And that's like that's the bare bones of it all. The free program, open broadcasting software that is constantly getting updated and being supported, and they're finding new ways to kind of innovate and bring in other programs, and it's just really, really damn good. I'm just always impressed that it's still like a free program.
And I use Streamlabs OBS.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, yeah, I've like
do that to yourself.
I use both. Andy has kind of walked me into using OBS more. I started with OBS. I went to Streamlabs OBS because I liked what they had done with making it easy for beginner streamers to kind of learn off of their tutorials and also integrate different things like alerts and different mixtures of, I could sell merch through Streamlabs OBS. So like Streamlabs OBS, when you look at it, Streamlabs itself as a website, they have a lot of things for beginner streamers to feel more comfortable, as where OBS feels like it's just the bare bones streaming software. That's what you get. It's everything. They're both the exact thing, but the other one feels like a little bit more, hey, this is beginner level. We can teach you.
Real quick, what is OBS?
OBS is the program you use to go live on any of these platforms. And again, it's a free software. And you bringing up Streamlabs OBS, it kind of reminds me of going with the PC versus the Mac.
Yeah.
Where Streamlabs is a program that is usually the kind of the first go-to you'd have to set up an alert on your stream. When somebody follows and somebody leaves a tip, when somebody subscribes or whatever, you see that Streamlab thing pop up with that default sound, the little like Jules play or whatever. And the neat thing about something like Streamlabs OBS is Streamlabs OBS, like Mike was just mentioning, has all of those things built in. So you can not only go live, but you can also hit, let me add an alert to this scene. Let me add a graphic to the scene or whatever. And it's all sort of tied in together.
They have your follows and recent
makes
events
it a bit more
there.
user-friendly for sure. But I like OBS because it's definitely less weighty. Streamlabs OBS is built on top of OBS, so they kind of like build. It's similar to getting like, getting a Samsung Android phone where Samsung's putting their software on top of Android instead of getting like the clean vanilla experience.
It also, I would say, Streamlabs in my kind of experience runs worse more often. I feel like it's more taxing on the PC, and depending on like what you're trying to do for streaming, might be a little bit too much. And it's also just like, and this is just a preference thing. I think the interface of Slobs is sloppy. It makes me slobby, I don't like it. And so here next to me, if you're watching the video, I have just like basic OBS up just so you can get an idea of just like the boys are saying, it is the very basic of like the software. That's what you get. and that's what you see.
Now, what's incredible about OBS, though, is that not only is it the program that you use to start streaming, and they do make it very simple to be able to do that. And while it is more complicated than Streamlabs OBS might be, once you look at a tutorial, it's pretty clear of what you need to do to make things happen. You make scenes, you can like click between things. It's like fairly user friendly. But what is incredible about it is that it's free, and it's also the best way to record footage. So like, it's not even just about the streaming, it's also a recording software. So if you want to record gameplay video, if you just want to screen capture record from your like whatever's on your Google Chrome or whatever your browser is, or if you actually just want to record camera footage, webcam footage, whatever it is, if you want to record a vlog or something, you use OBS to do that. There's a lot of more proprietary software that comes with different cameras, and there's different ways to do it, but like OBS is the standard even of just, I'm going to talk to the camera and record.
Yeah, back in the day when I would try to record gameplay footage off of whatever Elgato's gameplay capture suite was, like that just, it felt so clunky, and it just rarely works smoothly. I felt.
God, that brought me back to the early days, man.
Yeah, and then I would say over the pandemic when Elgato started their sort of campaign with like the Wave microphones and the Wave software suite,
Yes.
that made things a lot easier for me, because over the pandemic we knew that things were going to get really complicated trying to have audio routed certain ways. How is Mike going to hear my audio if I'm sending him my gameplay feed on Discord? And how are we going to make this sort of work from home thing work? And that's where I started looking into sound suites like, oh gosh, what's it called? Banana.
Yeah.
Republic.
Blanking on the name of
Yeah.
it.
I still use that to this day.
Chat knows what I'm talking about, but it's an audio routing software. Voice meter. Thank you. And Voice Meter has a bunch of different versions of itself, and Voice Meter Banana was one of the versions. And I was like, oh, go with this one. And I was looking up tutorials, and it was very, very complicated. And it's node based. So if you ever worked in like 3D software, like 3D textures software, or if you worked in game dev, you know, like here's this node, and I'm going to connect this texture to this like material. It's just like it was really, really complicated for me.
Gurkles?
Huh?
Gurples?
Greebles and Nernies.
We learned a lot last week.
We learned a lot last week.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Greebles and Nernies. But Wave 3 came along and just made it the Wave software rather, made things very, very user-friendly. Wave, not a perfect software. We get crashes a bunch, but I feel like
it reroutes audio all the goddamn time. Like, even as an example, right? Just for Wavelength, sorry, really quick. Before we were going live with Games Daily, Tim was like, "Oh, chat's saying that we weren't getting any standby audio." And that's I had to go to Station 1, which is the computer that we actually stream from, to both YouTube and Twitch. And the Wavelength software had rerouted all of the audio for whatever reason over the weekend, which is, again, very fun. I know it makes it very organized of where you want to route audio, but it is so inconsistent on keeping shit where it is.
And this is the thing that I feel like a perfect example of where we're at is Wavelink is incredible software that you do need to buy, unless I'm wrong about this now. You need to buy
the microphone.
It needs to be a Wave mic from Elgato, which again I think is a worthy investment.
One thing you can do if you don't want to use a Wave mic is like the
Wave XLR.
The Wave XLR, and you can just plug in any XLR, but you need some sort of Wave hardware.
Device from Elgato to be able to use the Wavelink thing. So unlike OBS, which is just completely free, there is financial investment to be able to use Wavelink. I think Wavelink is incredible for what it offers because of the simplicity with versatility as opposed to something like Voice Meter that is so complicated. So it's a situation that's different than the Streamlabs OBS and more on just it's simple, but it works, but there's a lot of tech issues. But I would argue the tech issues are worth it for how easy it is to actually use for whatever you might be needing to do as a streamer. When you start getting into the crazy audio stuff, yes, you're going to want to move on to something more complicated, but I'm incredibly impressed with how well Wavelink works most of the time.
Yeah. I also love my Stream Deck
What is
My
that?
Stream Deck is a little device that Elgato makes that a lot of different brands kind of have their own version.
Yeah, Razer has one now.
Yeah, Razer has one. The Elgato Stream Deck is a little device. It's got a bunch of buttons on it. Baron's showing it off right now, and that's how I set up what my scenes are and what I'm trying to do on stream. So I have my intro button that has just the video playing with the chat or whatever, and I could switch to the gaming thing, which then switches my OBS scene to my little window in the top left with the gameplay. It's also my soundboard where I have all just these stupid sounds that I play. I also recently set it up to change my voice where I can use my microphone, and then OBS is so great. This program called OBS that we've been talking about for the last hour, and you can add like filters on top of OBS and this filter I added makes it adds reverb, and it's a little plugin that I downloaded. It adds reverb, and now at the push of a button on that Stream Deck, bam, now my voice has reverb, and I can turn it off with the push of another button. I can push another button, and then I have like the Metal Gear Solid codec sound effect on my voice, so I can have that effect. And there's just so much versatility with these programs, and like you can just be really, really basic with all of it, and that's totally fine. But the amount of depth that there is really staggering.
Yeah, like for how we use Stream Deck was like a lot of learning during the pandemic, and then once we went into this new like studio, right? Like the way that Kevin has wanted to like integrate Stream Deck into how we run shows has been like very important. Like you can program so many steps with the push of just one button. Like, for example, right, at the beginning of this episode, right, you had the 50-second thing with Greg telling y'all about the Pledge Month, and then that went into the intro for Gamescast, and then that went into here, and all of those steps of, like, playing that video, starting the recording, turning on the intro for the show, and then transitioning over to this scene, all of that stuff, like, you can integrate into just like a push of a button, essentially, and you can go super in depth with it.
And on top of that, Steam Deck, there's now like
Stream Deck.
Stream Deck. There's like 4 versions out now that have different formats. One's really tiny. The one Barrett was using is the XL, so you get a shit ton of buttons. There's also the Stream Deck Plus that has a little screen on it and a bunch of knobs in case you want knobs. And the versatility is just insane. I would recommend a Stream Deck to pretty much anybody, even if you're not trying to stream, because there is so much functionality to it of just being able to make the buttons do whatever you want, and looking at the ones with the knobs and all that stuff, like what are some things you're like, oh, I wish there was just a button I can press to do that for just normal PC stuff? Like I don't really stream, but when I have my Stream Deck at home and I use it every day, like just to open up different programs, or just to like change the lights in my room, like things like that.
Yeah, I think at one point Gary Whitta had his Stream Deck button set to do different of the what were they called in Helldivers, where you type in your little boop 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 boop. I'm blanking on the name of the word, to where you would call in like your abilities or stratagems. Yeah. You could do so many different things with the Stream Deck, and it's such a cool piece of hardware that I recommend people have.
And there's a lot, I mean, you can dive deep and like set everything yourself, but there's also a lot of program integrations into it. So like you can download an Adobe Premiere like set of macros that go to your Stream Deck that you can then change the different, like you're in editing mode, or you're in color grading mode, or you're like whatever. It's like, and or Photoshop has its own thing too. It's like there's a lot of versatility that they kind of give you, so you don't need to think about it. But if you have needs of like, oh, I wish I could do this, chances are you can. Like there's been maybe like 2 or 3 times I've ever been like, I wish they could do it. I couldn't figure out getting it to work. And even then, you put a little bit of thought into it, you can get it going. Like one of my things is I wish I could turn my monitor on. But because there's just not a way for like it over Wi-Fi to like turn the monitor, like just monitor on and off. But there's ways around it where it's like, okay, just plug your monitor into a smart plug, and then the smart plug can then connect to Wi-Fi, and then your Steam Deck can do it. Stream Deck.